In sy kabinetskommeling presies 'n week gelede het president Cyril Ramaphosa onder meer Suid-Afrika se heel eerste minister van elektrisiteit aangestel. Dit was nadat hy in Februarie in sy staatsrede aangedui het dat die nuwe pos in die kabinet geskep sal word. Om nou verder te gesels oor die werk wat voorlê en sy planne om die elektrisiteitskrisis te takel, sluit die minister van elektrisiteit, Dr. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa, by my aan. Minister, so you've been in this job exactly a week. What would you say is the biggest challenge ahead for you in this portfolio?
Well, thank you very much for the invitation and good evening to the viewers at home. I think the first part is just to galvanize the employees at the Eskom because they are the ones who are at the coalface of resolving this problem. Of course, I'm the minister, I'm the political and figurehead, but I think there has to be an appreciation that the biggest asset to any organization is the people in that organization. So it's important that we get to reaffirm their importance, provide the necessary support that is required to be able to, if you like, lift their spirits, confirm that we believe in them. Of course, there are goals, there are targets that we must achieve, and we'll be able to outline what the expectations are. The second one really is the general public. I think there's high levels of impatience, there's high degree of anger and indignation. People have lost jobs, companies have closed down, people can't put food on the table, families have lost their appliances, some of the people might have lost their loved ones as a result of load shedding. Farmers can't irrigate and therefore threat to food security. So it's just to convey to the general public our commitment to resolve the load shedding question, but also share with them what are these implementation steps that we are going to take to resolve both the intensity and the regularity of load shedding.
Well, on that point, Minister, I guess the key question is where will our electricity come from? How are you going to address generation capacity?
Yeah, if you look at our installed capacity, I mean, there's about 52,000 megawatts of installed capacity. And of that, coal, if you like, accounts for about 82%. So it's important that we focus on returning units back into operation. There's a considerable number of these units. Kusile Medupi, one of the youngest, if you like, power plants, are really letting us down. There's about, collectively between the two, about 3,000 megawatts that are of the grid, and they are operating at the energy availability factor, especially Kusile, of about 25%. So you need to lift that so that the energy availability factor best approximates, if you like, what is in the integrated resource plan. That makes an assumption that the energy availability factor will be about 78%. There are 6 notorious power plants. So if you look at the 81 units of Eskom, there's 6 notorious power plants whose energy availability factor is consistently below 40%. And in fact, if you look at the total fleet of power station, coal power station, of course you add Quebec there, only 3 power stations are above energy availability factor of 50%. So there's a need for us to provide a laser focus on the ones that are notorious for underperforming. There has been some studies, of course, led by Minister Godan and some experts just to understand the nature of the problem there. As I speak to you now, the amount of trips that we are experiencing on a daily basis, they average about 6 trips a day. And that amounts to, if you average a trip to be 600 megawatts, there's 3,600 megawatts that are taken out. And to return them back to operation, it takes on average 48 hours. So yesterday, if you work on that assumption, there were 6 trips, not all of them have been returned. Today, there are 6 trips, not all of them have been returned. And that's why we're oscillating between stage 4 and 6, is because of these trips. So you need to address that. And there's something that is called a partial load losses. Essentially, is the efficiency of the power station. Those ones, they account for about 4,000 megawatts that we lose as a result of inefficiencies. Essentially, you have a car that is designed to reach maximum speed of 100 kilometers per hour, but is running at 40 kilometers per hour. So it's important that we improve the efficiency. So look at identify the low-hanging fruits and zero into not just the power station, but go into the units. The conversations with the employees at Eskom is going to be exceptionally useful. It's going to be revealing about how they see the resolution of this problem. I mean, just to share with you is that we have underinvested in the capacity at the station level. As I speak to you, there's vacancies of about 2,000 vacancies. So this is approved structure, 2,000 vacancies at the station level. We have moved our spending on maintenance from 3 billion, it's at 12 billion, and yet the plants are underperforming. Vacancies, engineers, about 340 of these engineers at the station level. These are the people who are at the coalface. So we are relying heavily on outside contractors. We have quadrupled, multiplied the maintenance 4 times, from 3 billion to 12 billion, but the energy availability factor has moved from about 85% plus in 2010, went to about 68% plus 18, 19. As I speak to you, we're about 53. At some point, we're at 48%. And yet, we are spending money on maintenance.
Minister,
so these are the issues.
You clearly have a very strong grasp on the issue, the magnitude of the crisis. But how exactly are you going to address these issues? We have a Minister of Energy, we have a Minister of Public Enterprises, we have an acting CEO at Eskom. Where do you fit in?
No, I think it's a good question. So the Minister of Minerals and Energy will remain at the policy level, essentially policy issues across the entire energy spectrum, and electricity is just but one component. The Minister of DP, Public Enterprises, Minister Gordhan, remains the shareholder representative at Eskom. What we are meant to do is to go a level below that. So, I mean, I'm coming here wearing a suit just because I'm respecting the invitation, but on a daily basis, you work with plant managers. So if you like, it's a portfolio management approach. Get your hands dirty. Ask these pertinent questions. So you go to a station X and say you're operating at the energy availability factor of, let's say, 40%. Tell me, how are you going to get it to 60%? The plant manager will say, if you give me an opportunity to buy that turbine, that instrumentation, I should be able to get it there. Okay, so why are you not doing it? He's likely going, or she's likely going to say, but the Public Finance Management Act is not that agile. I need to run a full procurement process from a bid specification until I procure. In some instances, could be up to 18 months, and yet the plant is deteriorating. Okay, so that's your limitation. So what I will do, I will invoke the provision of the state of disaster so that we accelerate that procurement. But I must share with the public, provide the reasons why we invoke the state of disaster regulation, but show that from 40% energy availability factor, we have moved to 60. And then there's going to be greater appreciation. We have to be transparent about how we deal with these matters. So all I'm saying is that at the station level, at the unit level, wake up every morning, work with them. And then there's additional generation capacity. The renewable energy sponsors are very active in the space. Ask the question, what will it take for us to accelerate your project to come into the grid? They might say, look, I'm in the Northern Cape, I'm ready. The only problem I have is that I can't evacuate the energy. I can't supply it because the grid does not have enough capacity. Then we must invest in the grid so that we evacuate the electrons, or if you like, the energy, and it comes to the north and the center, Gauteng and other parts of the country. So we get to that level and make interventions also on the demand side. You and I, our consumption at home, we need to bring it down without undermining our ability to meet our daily needs. So there's some technology that exists. We know, for an example, that households consume at peak up to 35% of installed capacity. If we are able to remotely switch off all the geysers, we are able to save up to 4,000 megawatts. Eskom did this 2010 when during the period of the World Cup, they galvanized society to do exactly that. So the things I'm sharing with you, it's not things that have not been tried before, but I think there has to be greater levels of effort. We
Minister,
have to pull together.
Very shortly, and lastly, what do you see the role of the private sector in you addressing the crisis?
A big role. First is on the generation side. We must enable them to connect the grid. Secondly is around the feed-in tariffs. If you look at the major property owners in the country, I mean, they are rooftop space. We can be able to put solar and provide battery inverters and feed it back into the system. That is excess energy, but there has to be incentives for them to do that. On the demand side, working with the commercial banks, we have started those conversations, and the DFI create instruments to finance households that they don't have sufficient or enough credit profile to get money from the banks, so that you are able to install solar PV to benefit from the incentives that the minister has provided. But I want to, as a parting shot, that is belangrijk dat ons moet allemaal werksaam. This is our problem. We have to resolve it together.
Thank you so much.